Joe Root in the Test series against the West Indies passed 12,000 runs, and now already people are trying to work out how many games, how many innings, how many years it's going to take him to get maybe, potentially, above Sachin Tendulkar. Root's got 12,027 runs, Sachin 15,921. So we've still got a long way to go. Just on Joe Root, when he retires, where's he going to be on that list of all-time leading run scorers, Bumble? Will he get to number? We'll get to number one.
He gets to number one. He's 33 now. He's 34 in December. They just look at him now, and they're as fit as. Age is just a number, and I should think he'll play another 4 or 5 years. And should in that time have enough Test matches. England play Test matches, and he keeps his form. And it's funny that you mentioned he's got all those runs, and I was going to say seamlessly. I was at the Test match on Saturday, and I'd seen him come in, and I thought he's looking all right. I looked at the board, 42. Yeah. How has he got them? So I think he'll get right up there.
I think there's so many things that can go wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. So he says he's 33, 34. Like cricketers used to be, shipped off to the glue factory at 32 in the old days. He is different, but once you get over 33, 34 and your family life comes in, and maybe you get an offer from the media, maybe you has a chance of working for an IPL franchise, all these different things will start to come in, and he'll start, his knees and his ankles might be a little bit sore, his back will get stiff, all those sorts of things start to happen. I think the seamless thing is the most interesting thing with Root, because I was talking to Chris Rogers recently, former Test player, and he said that he coaches his players on clips of Joe Root. He said, have a look at this, watch 20 minutes of this guy bat. He's on 20 not out already. He hasn't played a big shot yet. So we know he's going to be making runs consistently all the way through. How much does he want to keep putting his body and, the amount of hours that he has to do and everything else? I think that's the tricky thing. I mean, England played like 1 million Test matches.
They do.
Right?
That's an advantage to him.
And disadvantage. Because you look up at... I think when it comes to the amount of Tests they play, he can beat Tendulkar. But when it comes to him 1 year, when he's 35 or 36, Bumble, looking at the schedule and going, God, I've got to play 16 Test matches this year, he might think to himself, that's a lot of games.
I'll put another angle on this. He's from Yorkshire. He'll be driven... and he'll have his eyes on that. Make no mistake, he'll have his eyes on that.
That was my next question, because he was asked about it by Stuart Broad.
Of course, he's going to
blank. And he completely played it down. He didn't even for like a second try and entertain. But do you think that's something that he'll be working out in his head? Yeah. This many Test matches, many years.
Wouldn't you? I'll be watching that list now. I've just ticked him off. Yeah. Now I'll tick him off. Now I'll tick him off. And that's in my sights. And then he'll be like, who have we got?
Yeah.
Who have we got? Yeah.
There's a couple of things I think as well, we know that players over 35 generally start to fade a little bit, right? So we're going to work out if there's going to be a little bit of a decline. He's still going to be in England's best six batter, so I don't think he's not going to get dropped, right? If he can average over 38, he's probably going to get a job as a batter in England these days. So I don't think that's an issue, but he might slow down a little bit as well. But you're right, I think he'll be thinking about that. I would say this, I think Joe Root loves batting.
Yes.
But I don't think cricket is everything to him in the way that it perhaps certainly was to Sachin.
Yeah, he's well-rounded.
Well, Sachin was someone who, I remember Rahul Dravid saying once that Sachin spent his whole life revolving around his batting, right? Every decision that Sachin made was about his batting, to be a better batter, to make more runs, to tick off those marks and everything else. Whereas I think Joe Root loves golf, right? And, he's got a little bit more around his life. That's what I mean when you start to get a little bit older. I mean, you're 12, whatever you are.
28 now, Bumble. Yeah. Nearly 30, eh?
But when you get to, my age or Bumble's age, you do start to think about other things, right?
That's quite a big gap, I should say. I think in between, you're both in the same age bracket here.
There's also a slight gap between me and Joe Root as well, to be fair. But I think you prioritise other things at that point. That's all I'm saying. If you're just talking batting and the amount of Tests England play, he could easily beat that mark.
If he does Bumble, is there an argument to be had that he's in the top 5 greatest batsmen of all time?
Because definitely. Yeah. I mean, you've got to ask Jarrod that, because he's written a book as the 50 best batsmen that there's ever been.
Yeah.
And so all will be revealed as to what order they're in. Now, he might tell us where Joe Root is right now, but he's got unfinished business as Joe Root.
When we were doing the book, we had Marnus Labuschagne, obviously, had incredible numbers. And by the time I'd finished the first draft, you couldn't even say that Marnus Labuschagne could even be on the top 80 list, right? It's different for Joe Root, because if he retired right now, I still think he'd be top 20 of all time without any doubt, right? Where he goes from here depends on whether he has a glorious next 4 years, or remember Gordon Greenwich, the West Indian opener. The last 4 or 5 years of his career, he didn't make any runs, and he went from averaging over 50 to well under it, right? These things happen with batters, but he has a chance of being, I would say, top 5 of all time. If he goes past Sachin, I think he's got a genuine case to be top 5.
But we get into... So I will say that Bradman is number 1 in his book, so that's a given. So W.G. Grace, who he's got great affection for,
yes.
And they've got gates named after him at Lord's, and he's a crook, wasn't he? He was a crook.
So from a cricket perspective, he's dead right. We could say he's a crook. Yeah, I think we're okay.
I think we're okay. Yeah, we've got a thumbs up from behind the cameras. We're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, W.G. Grace is one of those players that, like, people were going to remember him forever. Joe Root is probably never going to be in that W.G. Grace tier.
I don't mean he was a crook like a burglar. He was a cricket crook. He would go, I'll have a bat here, I won't do any fielding, I'm going to have a bat over here, and actually I'm not out, I'll put the bails back on, they've all come to watch me.
Exactly, yeah, he did lots of dodgy things, and he is A-Row. I don't think Root ever gets to that level. Be interesting, I know that Bumble rates KP higher than almost any other English player.
I do.
If Root goes past Tendulkar, though, do you swap them? Because of longevity at that point.
Well, what I'm saying about Kevin Pietersen, in my view, he got me on the edge of the seat, and he could change a game in a session, and aesthetically, he was fantastic. Now, the numbers, Alistair Cook had the numbers. He's got the numbers. But he didn't sort of get me on the edge of the seat. Graham Gooch would be in that list for me because he was a fantastic player, brave player against some of the greatest bowlers that we've ever seen.
Stop talking about all your friends.
Yeah.
Right now, where would you have Root?
Right now, top 10.
What about just England?
In England, 2.
Behind KP?
Yeah.
And if he goes past Sachin, does he...
He'll flip Kevin Pietersen. He'll flip him.
There you go.
When you guys are looking at the best this, the best that, you know, you've got the most amount of runs, the best averages. Do you have to also did you take, when doing this book, I'm assuming you did, you heavily have to take into consideration where you're scoring those runs? So for argument's sake, because I've seen people have this debate all over Twitter, and a lot of people, when talking about Joe Root, go, how on earth can he be the best or one of the best when he's never scored a Test match 100 in Australia? Yeah. Is that something, do you have to, when England go there in 18 months' time, does he have to tick that off, do you think?
Yeah, he does for me, yeah. And there's every chance that he will do. You know, there's every chance that he'll do that. But people will always pick holes in, but what about, he's not done this, he hasn't done that, he's not the greatest. Kevin Pietersen can't play left-arm spin, so he goes down the list. But, you know, the numbers are there, they don't lie. What's his average? What's his strike rate? Did he flip the game? Did he change the game? Then we're coming on to England want a wicket keeper. They don't want a wicket keeper. Yeah. They want somebody who will change the game at number 7 who can keep wicket. That's as simple as that.
Yeah. I think when you look at that, once you get down to those records, right, you're just nitpicking between different levels of greatness.
Absolutely.
Right? So Sobers bats at number 6 for the West Indies. Yeah. But me and Bumble will tell you, he batted at number 6 because he also had to bowl 40 overs again. Right? Yeah. It's like Callis didn't bowl that many overs.
And he didn't get any sleep either, Gary. He didn't go to bed till 3 o'clock, so he needed a bit of a lie down in the morning.
I think Root was slightly different than that. Maybe a slightly different nighttime routine. But you start to do those sorts of nitpicking, and that's one for him. And you look at Sachin, right? I think Sachin has the best record of any teenager, and also maybe in the best 2 or 3 best records of anyone over the age of 35. So now you're talking about longevity over a ridiculous amount of time. So, you know, you keep factoring all those things in. But Root is, go back to Bumble, he's just ticking off things as he goes. If he never makes runs in Australia, there are, you know, Ricky Ponting struggled in India, right? There are great players who struggle in one location. Those things happen. There's nothing wrong with Joe Root's game to say he shouldn't make runs in Australia, though.
Why do you think he hasn't made big runs in Australia?
Captaincy for a start. Who was he captain over there?
I mean, last time he was broken man. That was a tough series as well, wasn't it?
Well, Shirt Broad, was it Shirt Broad that said he didn't think that series should have happened?
Yeah, I can't discuss
Maybe
that.
A conversation for another day.
They made him an opener at one stage in Australia, don't forget. So you can almost wipe out 2 series that he went to Australia that probably didn't go the way that they should have. Look, I think he's got the game for that. I would say if he had any weakness, perhaps it is that sort of, you know, extra bounce just outside off stump, nicking off occasionally. Maybe in Australia that comes out a little bit more, but it's not a big weakness, is it? It's not like there's a big glaring hole in his batting or anything.
You're not going to leave him out?
Yeah, he probably won't get dropped for the next Australia tour. There you go. There's your headline.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Subheading. Also, we talk about Sachin.
Yeah. Who, by the way, is also good at batting, isn't he?
You said he wasn't as good as Root, though, off air. Do you still stand by that?
Oh, 100%. Root over Sachin every single day of the week, right?
Yeah.
That goes without saying, right?
I wouldn't say that because I value my...
Where's Sachin in your book? Number 2?
He's quite high.
He's number 2? Got to be number 2, hasn't he?
Well, I mean, we go on to Sachin Tendulkar and Brian Lara. I mean, Lara, he's got to be in the top 5.
Well, you would have Root as a more of a Tendulkar type player.
Yes.
And you would have, some of the other players we've talked about as that sort of more Lara-like player,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and they're very different. And so a lot of it comes down to your personal preference, right? Like at a certain point, one of the Root's big problems was his failure to go from 50 to 100.
Yes.
And you talk to someone like the South African legend Barry Richards, who didn't play a lot of test matches, and he's like, I don't understand why everyone found it so hard. Once you get to 50, you automatically get 100 if you want to, right? So everyone thinks about these things very, very differently. When it comes down to it, Root is a player who is, I think my memory of Root more than anything else, it's very different than Sachin is, I always think of Root at the non-strikers end. Because I think he's the best player I've ever seen at just literally, this guy's bowling good, I'm going to go the other end.
Get the other
And
end.
he does it over and over again. And that is not as sexy as Brian Lara's backlift or Garfield Sobers going out to 4 a.m. with girls. Do you know what I mean? It's just not as sexy as that.
That one, yeah, that definitely sounds more fun, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Brian Lara one, yeah. As opposed to getting up the other end.
Yeah.
Go out with the girls, right, Bumble?
Well, there's 3 players who would be right up there for me. Gary Sobers you've mentioned, Brian Lara you've mentioned, and Vivian Richards. They enjoyed life.
Isn't there a thing about Lara when he broke the world record and then he went on and he basically said, the next 3 years were a bit of a write-off for me.
Yeah.
I didn't focus as much as I should have.
And then
Sometimes you just enjoy life, right?
And the other, whether it's in the book or not, the player from yesteryear who was that pin-up boy and out till all hours was Dennis Compton.
Yeah.
It's that great line, if you come back with a piano stool. You don't need a bat, you just need a piano stool. I'm going back.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.